Bill 2828. That is the Marshall County Sales Tax Authority that we heard yesterday. I don't know that we necessarily need a review of the bill where we just heard it, unless anybody would have any questions for the reviser. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open it up for discussion or motion. Representative Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move we pass House Bill 2828 favorably and place it on the consent calendar.
Okay, and second from Representative Helgerson. Any discussion, committee? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Committee, the next bill I wanted to take a look at, we had suspended debate on House Bill 2219 several weeks ago. I wanted to bring that up for the body's consideration. That was the subtraction modification for losses on itemized deductions for gambling losses. But might turn to the reviser because we had already passed one amendment on it, I believe, if memory serves me, that brought it back to January 1st of 2024. Was there anything else that we had modified on that?
Mr. Chairman, that was correct. It was just a technical amendment to update since it was a 2023 bill originally filed, it updated the years to reflect the current tax year.
Are there any questions for the reviser? If not, I want to first of all thank Representative Hoheisel and Representative Howerton. We had talked about keeping track of these losses. How can we monitor this? Also want to thank the folks from Department of Revenue. We did meet with them, and they currently have in their system right now what they call edits. I call them red flags. So when somebody turns in an itemized tax return, there are certain parameters that they build into their system, and they didn't want to tell me, and I didn't want to hear what those parameters were, because if that becomes public, then people are going to stay under whatever those parameters are. But they currently have these edits in place in their programming to where if it looks like someone could be taking advantage of a large loss, either through our current code, if we have charitable deductions or medical expenses that are claimed, if it looks unusual or exorbitant, they flag those and they check in on them. The same thing would apply to these gaming losses. We did talk about several ideas. We might have a bill next year to create parameters to where there's perhaps some random itemizations that are pulled to take a look at, even if you don't cross some of those thresholds. I think that's good because people might take the risk of deducting fraudulent losses or fraudulent expenses on any of their itemized deductions if they think they can get away with it. So I think having perhaps at some future point, having a random selection of these returns would be a wise thing. But I know that was part of the committee's concern about this bill before, but after visiting with Department of Revenue, I felt a lot better about the provisions that we have in there to kind of protect the state against fraud. But be happy to maybe have Department of Revenue expand on that if there are any questions, but would open that up for discussion as well if anybody has any comments. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank you as well as Representative Howerton on this issue. We had some discussions. Her intent is absolutely noble, and I appreciate the fact that she wants to make sure this is only applied in the right way, and we don't have any fraud in this. And so I respect that position, and I look forward to further things we can do for those guardrails, I should say. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again to Representative Howerton.
Thank you. Representative Clayton.
Could you just remind us of the bill number again, please? Thank you.
I apologize. It's House Bill 2219. If your S drive is even working, the beauty of technology today, when it works, when it doesn't, it doesn't. I couldn't even pull up my S drive, but yes, sir.
IT is aware of the issue with the Wi-Fi. KS Open is working. If you have a VPN, you can use that to get into the S drive. If you need a dongle for the Ethernet cable, you can sign one out from IT.
Yes, it's my understanding that my wife's the county treasurer, and apparently the DMV system is down too. So she's had a really slow afternoon. So further discussion on 2219 committee. Seeing none, do we have a motion? Representative Hoheisel.
Remind me of the bill number one more time.
2219.
Mr. Chair, I move that we pass out 2219 as amended favorably.
I think we'll take Representative Kessler on the second there. Yeah. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries. Body, we will go ahead and take up Senate Bill 300 now. This is a bill that was not specifically heard. This contains the bank privilege fees and financial institutions. It's the intention to take this bill and insert the contents of 2844. But I will go ahead and make a motion on Senate Bill 300 to remove the contents and insert 2844, second by Representative Hoheisel. Any discussion? Representative Sawyer.
And just a,
Sawyer Clayton.
it's fine. Just a, I'll answer just about anything. Just a clarification. So we're inserting the contents of 2884?
44.
2844. Thank you.
Yes, our new tax bill. I've got, or the last one was 2284. This one's 2844. So, and
Mr. Chairman, just for
Go ahead.
clarification, we are striking the contents of SB 300, correct?
yes, that provision is actually in
Yeah.
2844, but we'll go ahead and strike that. It will be a House substitute
Gotcha.
bill.
Thank you, sir.
Taking care of that.
Henry's got a question.
Representative Helgerson.
Could we have staff just not go through in detail, but what are the items that are in it so we're all on the same page?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to give us an overview on the tax bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'll go through the provisions quickly. The bill would repeal and abolish the LAVTRF and the County and City Revenue Sharing Fund and remove corresponding references. The bill would decrease the required 20 mil levy for schools to 18 mils. The bill would increase the exemption for residential property from the statewide school levy. It would be increased to $80,000 and provide possible increases starting in 2025. The bill would decrease the privilege tax for national banking associations to 1.63% and for trust companies and savings and loan association to 1.61%. And that would start in tax year 2025. The bill would decrease the individual rates of income tax. The bill would increase the threshold for the income limitation for the Social Security deduction. That would be over 3 years, starting in tax year 2024 and then 2025. All Social Security income would be eligible for the deduction of from Kansas income. Section 16 would increase the standard deduction. And then for 2024, the single filers would be $3,605. Married, $8,240, and head of household, $6,180. And then for an additional 2 years, and then subject to legislative enactment thereafter, the standard deduction would be increased by cost of living adjustment. And then lastly, there would be an increase in personal exemption, would increase for 2024 to $2,320. And then there would also for 2 years, and then subject to legislative enactment thereafter, the standard or the personal exemption would be increased pursuant to a cost of living adjustment.
I think Representative Epley and then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you probably said this and I was writing and I didn't catch it. On these cost of livings, is there a sunset on those or do they just go on forever?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Essentially, it would be 2 years. That would be in effect for 2 years. For 2 tax years, it would go up by cost of living adjustment. And then unless the legislator takes further action, it would stop at that point and remain at that amount. Subject to enactment, it could increase further. But if with absent any legislative enactment, after tax year 2026, it would be held firm.
And that's for both of those provisions.
That is personal, yes, the standard deduction and the personal exemption.
Thank you very much, Supervisor, and thank you very much, Chairman.
If I could just speak briefly to that, the reason that we put that sunset in is because there was a little bit of concern about tying that permanently. If the state ever got into an economic downturn that caused some problems with the state budget, that would allow a legislature to just kind of freeze at whatever rate they're at the point, and then reinstate that at some future point once the economy had turned around. Representative Helgerson.
Is the fiscal note 265 million?
I might have Eddie address that.
The 265 million in fiscal year 2025 and then growing to 249.9 million in 26 is the state general fund revenue impact. There is an additional 147 million and then growing to 154.1 million and so on impact to the state school district finance fund that is a consequence of the two property tax provisions. That results in increased state general fund expenditures to backfill, so to speak, that school finance cost obligation to the state. And so the combined fiscal note of those two provisions, the total for not those two provisions, those two funds, the total for the state is 412 million in 2025, 404 million in 2026, 452.6 million in 2027.
This doesn't have the acceleration of the food, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And on the Social Security, is it fully, or is it just
4-year phase out?
4-year
phase
out. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the revisor? If not, Eddie had passed out pardon me, Representative Epley.
Mr. Chairman, I may have missed this on the 18 mils reduction to 18 mils. Is there a sunset on that? I mean, for backfill or?
No, we're currently talking about creating a demand transfer to guarantee that is backfilled. To my knowledge, we don't have an amendment prepared for that yet, but that might be coming just to guarantee that does get backfilled for both the reduction due to the 20 mils reduction to 18 and the residential exemption being increased from the 42,000 to 80,000.
So that may be forthcoming.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It would probably be a floor amendment when we work the bill, but I think we'll go ahead and turn to Eddie. Technically, we have a motion on the floor to do the gut and go. I guess for lack of a better word, that's what we call it. So we'll go ahead and discuss this information that Eddie passed out, and then we'll have a vote on the motion, and we'll be on the bill for further discussion. But Eddie.
So what you have in front of you is a graph that our office prepared that has 4 lines on it. Those 4 lines represent 4 different types of taxpayer: a single filer with no dependents, a joint return with no dependents, a joint return with 2 dependents, and a joint return with 4 dependents. And the horizontal axis is their adjusted gross income, and the vertical axis is the amount their taxes would change as a consequence of the combined impacts of the standard deduction, personal exemption, and rate and bracket pieces. This doesn't try to factor in the Social Security piece for any hypothetical taxpayer, and it also doesn't include the property tax piece. And so what you can see is that big drop on the front end of taxpayers with incomes. The individual income, it seems like it bottoms out somewhere in the vicinity of maybe $18,000, and then of course married couples probably about twice that much, depending upon their number of dependents, and then it comes back up, and then at a certain point it levels off to where it's essentially just the same percent type increase from everyone, and that of course is the downward slope attributable to the rate reduction piece of this. And so I would. The only other thing I do want to caveat as it relates to this is Dr. Ginther yesterday in her testimony included some hypothetical taxpayers in the impact. These numbers match up with what she provided, with the exception of her lowest income taxpayer. And her number is smaller there. That is because her lowest income hypothetical taxpayer included an implicit assumption that since that taxpayer had dependents, that they did avail themselves of the child and dependent tax credit that we have. That is a non-refundable credit. And so as their tax liability decreased to zero, they in essence lost the benefit of that credit. But in terms of what it would actually do to the tax owed absent all other credits, this reflects it. And so I do just want to highlight the rationale for that difference in case you go to compare these numbers to what was provided in your testimony.
Committee, any questions for Eddie on the handout? Seeing none, if there's no further discussion, we'll go ahead and vote on the motion on the table. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We are back on the bill. Discussion or amendments? Representative Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Part of this bill is doing away with the local ad valorem tax reduction fund and similar demand transfer into the city county highway fund. None of those things have been paid since 2004. But I do think that our cities and counties have a real issue as far as funding some of their infrastructure. They get 1/3 of the gas taxes to be used to maintain their roads. And that stayed relatively flat for the last number of years because of increasing fuel efficiency of vehicles. There was a third demand transfer that was also part of this package that was done away with in 2008. And Adam, you've got a amendment on that. Would you want to go ahead and pass that out? So this third demand transfer was a commercial motor vehicle tax. Our regular vehicle taxes, they go to the state highway fund. This commercial vehicle registration fee actually has been going to the SGF since 2008. It's about $11.5 million currently. That would be something like a 14% increase to the amount in the special city county highway fund. And just to clean up all of these demand transfers, I would like to restore that and help our local cities and counties fund their infrastructure. Because of the nature of this fund, it will definitely go for infrastructure in our communities. There's no way that it won't be used for a purpose like that. And so I don't know if Adam needs to describe it a little bit better or what.
Yeah, I'll let the revisor explain a little bit more.
And I guess I make the motion.
Yeah, do we have a second? Representative Hoheisel for the second, and Mr. Revisor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, you can see on this back page, it would institute the provision and it would strike essentially the pause on the transfers. So the transfers would commence fiscal year 2025. So it removes the prohibition on the transfer. So assuming this would get on and go through, the transfer was to this fund would start occurring in fiscal year 2025.
Okay, thank you. It's nice to have the chair of transportation on this committee because I think as we saw yesterday, we kind of get a little wrapped around the axle on transportation issues. But committee, any discussion on the amendment, or Representative Francis, do you have anything further to add?
Well, and I might add that this is something that really makes sense. Again, I think I mentioned it already. Our car registration fees already go into the state highway fund. This is a commercial motor vehicle registration fee. Rather than put it in the state highway fund, we'll put it in the city county fund. And I think we all know that our commercial vehicles create most of the majority of the wear and tear on our local roads. So, I think this is something that helps them up. I think it's good sound tax policy, and I hope you'll support the motion.
Committee, any discussion or questions? Representative Sawyer.
Can we add another proviso? The city of Topeka has to fix all the potholes.
It's not that much money. There's not enough money in the budget to do that.
Representative Francis or Abercamp and then Howerton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick, appreciate the amendment. I think it will go directly to help either stabilize the mill levy or decrease the mill levy for cities to help pay for their streets. That's where it's going. It's going right into the city accounts that go to their roads. And a little bit of personal interest. I'm still on the city council, and that will definitely help out keeping the property tax low. So thank you.
Representative Howerton.
Thank you. I'm going to play the new person card. So this already exists, and it's going to the state highway fund now.
No, it's going to the state general fund.
State general
now.
fund.
Yeah, we've got a proviso in the budget that stops it from going into this fund.
Okay, and then we're just moving those funds over.
Yeah, as they were originally intended.
Thank you.
Yep, Representative Sawyer.
I'm going to support this amendment too. We had three funds basically that we used to give to local governments: the city county revenue sharing fund, which we haven't funded since 2003, the LAVTRF, which we haven't funded since 2003, and then there's the special city county highway fund. And I think it's, this is the least we can do is give them a little bit of funding. And we all know how important roads are, and that's a very big part of what local governments deal with. So I'll support it.
Yeah, I'd like to mention that I fully support this motion too. It's not nearly what LAVTR would be, but it's 11.5 million more than what they're getting now. So, committee, any further discussion? Representative Howerton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So how is it determined how much goes to each city? Is that laid out somewhere, or?
Yeah, there's a statutory formula, and it'll follow the same statutory formula as used for the gas tax.
Okay.
Their portion of the gas tax now.
Okay, thank you.
That's right, isn't it, Adam? Okay.
Again, I'm glad we have the chair of transportation on tax. Any further discussion on the Francis motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Anyone wishing to be recorded? Motion carries. We are back on the bill. Representative Corbett.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to propose an amendment to remove all income tax on Social Security.
Yeah, we'll have that passed out here. This is basically accelerating the what's currently being phased out, just accelerating that to immediate. Okay.
Speed it up. It's for you. I know where it's coming from too.
This is a fairly straightforward amendment. Representative Corbett, do you want to explain any further or just open it up for discussion?
Just a little bit. With 1/3 of this state being 55 and older, and with the highest property taxes on vehicles, on everything else they offer in this state, if you want to keep these people here, and you got to give them some incentive to stay in the state. And I think that this is for all the money that's in this building that's going somewhere that should go to a good cause and maybe let people stay in their homes a little longer. I don't see anything this would hurt.
Do we have a second on the second by Representative Hoheisel? Oh, question? Second and a question. Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do appreciate this amendment and intend on supporting it. One quick question. In FY 2025, we're at 412 million. What does this take us to in FY 2025? Research has a.
Yeah, Eddie.
It adds slightly more than 100 million to the 2025 impact, and then it adds about 55 to 57 million to the 2026 impact, and then it adds some 26-ish million to the 2028 impact, or excuse me, the 2027 impact. But then by the time you're to 28 and 29, the underlying bill has it fully phased out, so there's no impact in those out years.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Chair. And I know we wanted to stay roughly around the $500 million range. I think this still keeps us there, and then in the out years puts us under that 500 million. So I fully intend on supporting this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have?
I was
Representative Sawyer.
Thank you, Eddie. Could you give us the new total numbers, like the first year that when you add, was it 412, and then you just basically so it'll be 512 basically?
It's slightly over 100 million, and the reason for that is because even though it's a little over 120 million per year, once fully annualized, that first year has the retroactivity to January 1 of this year, so it's got 130% of the impact.
Committee, if I could just speak to this for a moment. I know currently we have the phase out, so by year 4, it's essentially no fiscal difference than what we have in the current bill. But I know as a committee, as the House of Representatives, I think people are all over the place on this. About the only proposal we don't have is to leave the cliff in. So I think we're at least going to get rid of the cliff. But the benefit of the phase out that we have right now is to kind of stretch out the fiscal impact to that. I do know that we have a surplus right now. We have an ending balance. I like the way we've drafted the bill with the phase out right now, but I will leave it up to the body, to the committee on this amendment. Yes, Representative Bergkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess most people probably know where I stand on this. I've made myself pretty clear, hopefully to most. You mentioned the number of retirees that are going to be here, and I just think I appreciate us trying to help retirees, but at the same time too, we have to help everybody. And I think whenever I look at this kind of like the food sales tax, where you start chipping away at your ability to lower the overall rate, which to me is our ultimate goal. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do too much of this year. So if we'd be able to lower the overall rate, we could still really give them maybe not the full benefit, but you look at the people who are going to benefit from cutting Social Security where it is right now, and it's fairly wealthy people. So really, if we'd cut that top marginal rate, they're going to get a pretty big benefit, but not only them, but all Kansans. So to me, I'm going to oppose this because I just think it's bad policy and doesn't help the state. Thank you.
Representative Alcala.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to support this. I know a lot of you guys campaign door to door. I've found a large percentage of female ladies that have lost their husbands that are in their 80s and 85s that are drawing Social Security that the state tax is killing them. And it does total up to a lot. And so I think this has an impact not on wealthy people in my district. This is mainly low to moderate income that are maybe drawing $800, $900 a month on Social Security. Some of them are. So this will be a big help to them. So I'm supporting this because I think it does help people that are in need.
Okay, I have Corbett and then Bergkamp and then Francis.
The budget's gone up 8 or 9% or whatever it is. Money's being spent for every other thing you could probably think of. Maybe get a $40 or $50 break on your property tax. I think it's time to think about the people who got this state to where it is now, the people who've served and maintained this state. I think I think you owe them a little bit of something, and I think they deserve it. I'm going to vote yes.
Representative Bergkamp.
Thank you for a second time. Just to address your comments. So if the widows are making under $75,000 right now, none of their Social Security is going to be taxed. So any low income earner that you talk to shouldn't be paying any tax on their Social Security. It's only people making above that.
Representative Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I think that the development of these packages are often pretty finely tuned, trying to make sure that we have votes across the body. And I know I hear of as many people that are concerned that we're cutting taxes too much as I hear that we're not cutting taxes enough. I know when I first came up here, we were in a severe financial crunch. And that we all know that wasn't fun. I think it's vitally important that we do away with the cliff. I think this is a great step into working through this problem. So I will be voting against the motion.
Okay, next is Representative Kessler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I was going to come back to Representative Bergkamp's comment about that. That if you have somebody that's making, you know, $800-900 a month, I mean, that comes out to they're only making about $11,000 a year. To put this in a little bit more perspective, and I agree with wanting to remove the sales tax. And when we talked about this last year and actually included that in our plan last year, our entire tax plan was centered around accepting that $100 million mark, right? So we built our tax plan with that idea in mind. This tax plan is built with not that in mind. So we're adding an additional $100+ million to the tax plan that we have developed now. And I don't think it's quite syncs quite correctly, but just to put it in perspective, the Social Security on the $75,000, you have to be making over $6,000 a month before you're even taxed on it. I just want to let that sink in real quick. Who are we really helping here? But you have to be making over $6,000 a month, federally adjusted gross income, before you're going to pay a penny on Social Security. So I just want to make that said.
Representative Alcala.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to your comment. You're correct. I guess I explained that wrong. I was trying to say I run across people that are making that much in Social Security, but the people that you say that are more well off, that don't get that tax break, it ends up increasing their taxes at the end of the year. A lot of them will have to pay more if they don't withdraw taxes out of their Social Security because they're struggling just to make ends meet. A lot of those are young couples with kids. Well, when I say young couples, I mean older couples with grandkids that they're taking care of. That's what I run across in my district. A lot of grandparents, I run into a lot of ladies in their 80s, 85 that lost their spouse that also take care of grandkids. But you're correct. I just wanted to say you're right.
Representative Howerton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to address the grandparent real quick, if it's a grandparent taking care of children, they're going to get all of the children's credits. They're going to get the standard deduction, plus the personal exemption for themselves and however many children, and they could possibly qualify for EIC. So they're going to get those benefits. It's not just the Social Security income that they're going to be on, because they probably have some kind of earned income as well. While my heart wants to do this, I just don't think it makes sense. I like the phase out. I like the easing into this. I appreciate the sentiment, but this is the struggle that I go with in my mind. This is retirement income, and I've heard it said, I think twice this week in different debates, that we're opening a can of worms. And if we're going to do Social Security, then why are we not doing all retirement income? It's the same. To me, it's retirement income. And so we have to be fair and be consistent, and to phase it out completely would be inconsistent this point in time for me thinking that through. I'm going to stick with the phase out. I'm going to be against the amendment, and I like the way we do that. So I appreciate that.
Next, I have Representative Butler, but Representative Howerton reminded me of a question. Did we have a chance to answer the question that we had yesterday? Is Social Security actually taxed when it's pulled out and withdrawn from your withholdings?
So the amount that is withheld from your paycheck for Social Security, the Social Security tax, is not deducted or excluded from your gross income for purposes of the income tax. And so you do still pay individual income tax on that money that is withheld for purposes of the Social Security payroll tax.
Okay, excellent.
I should clarify, that is the employee payroll tax is still considered income. The employer portion of that is not added to an individual's income. Yeah.
Okay. Representative Butler?
Yeah, I too heard all throughout the last couple of years that we've got to get rid of Social Security, but I think the phase out is the way that we're going to need to do it. When I look at what we're doing, and I talked to some other colleagues, I think when we start broaching that $500 million fiscal note, I think we're going to run into some problems. I think we've got to take a look at that as well and find out what's the best thing that we can push one of these tax bills across the finish line. And I think with the phase out, although I'd rather see it go away, I think the phase out's the way to go with this.
Representative Hoheisel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me a second time. I agree again on that $500 million threshold of what we're trying to approach. Just one quick question for research, if they have a answer offhand, and I forgive them, or forgive me if this is out of line. If we were to accelerate the food sales tax cut to July 1, what would that cost? Do we have that number handy?
It's a 1 year only impact, and the general fund portion of that is between 62 and 63 million, and there's an additional between 12 and 13 million hit to the highway fund.
So that puts us at about 475-ish, which is still under the 500 million. And maybe, I mean, you know, folks on Social Security, again, they eat food, they pay the food sales tax, and maybe that could be an answer that further tax relief for constituents and folks on Social Security while staying under that $500 million cliff. So that's just one idea to bounce around too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Clayton?
Thank you. This is a question for Eddie or just for staff in general, because our internet isn't working. You might know this offhand. How many states still tax Social Security? I know that we'll be phasing it out, but I just want to know.
It's somewhere in the 10 to 11 state range that still impose some sort of individual income tax. Only one state, and that state is Utah, just adopts a full federal conformity. Every other single state that is like Kansas and imposes some tax does have either a threshold or an age provision, at which point which provides for a reduced amount of state tax on Social Security, akin to what Kansas has with the $75,000 threshold.
Okay, well, thank you. Obviously I support the phase out. I support doing this initially right away. This is strictly for district reasons. This will really give a great deal of relief to my constituents. But also here's another thing to keep in mind is that a lot of the folks that are at that wealthier threshold tend to live in wealthier neighborhoods where they're suffering more under increased property tax. So just thinking about that from my standpoint, that's why I'll be supporting. I'm trying to, make sure I'm bringing that relief. But yeah, there you go. I probably just put it in danger.
Representative Clayton, while you were speaking, I pulled up the map of the United States it's from the Tax Foundation. States that are similar to Kansas, where they have some provisions in there where we have a threshold. Some of it's completely exempt, and then we start taxing it. Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Colorado all function with that provision. Oklahoma does not include any Social Security benefits as taxable. Arkansas, Iowa, of course, other within the region, Wyoming, South Dakota, and Texas have no income tax, so those are already off the books. But looking through the Midwest, there's a handful of states that completely exempt it, and another handful that operate similar to the way Kansas is. I'll go back to my list here. Representative Corbett next.
This will be it. I'm be my last go at this, but I'm just telling you guys and gals, when in doubt, vote your constituents. When you go out this fall and you say, you know, I want you to slap me on the back, I saved the state of Kansas. Unfortunately, you won't get any break on your Social Security, but you know the Capitol looks nice, the governor's fence looks nice, but sorry. So I'd vote your constituents. When you go door to door this fall, you'll put a lot of smiles on everybody's face, and my God, they've paid taxes for a long time. Give them a break.
Representative Bueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of points on this. First, I wish whether it's personal preference or I wish we would keep the discussion about Social Security and whether or not it's about wealth. Anybody who has reached a point in their life, we shouldn't be calling them the more wealthy or anything like that. And that, to me, I just find that presumptuous about the way the way they live their lives and their income levels. So I wish we would just keep that out of the discussion. The second part that I will say is based on this bill itself. We've got a fairly well crafted plan that has a lot of moving parts. I think we run the danger of the wheels falling off of this while we try to over amend. And while I do very much appreciate the sentiment around trying to accelerate the Social Security piece, I think there's a danger of screwing the whole thing up if we do that. So my personal view is we have a phase out plan. We'll get there. It'll take 3 years versus 1. And I just think that is something to consider when we're looking at this. So the 2 points would be, let's stay away from whether a person is wealthy or not, or whether they deserve a Social Security income tax benefit now because they're wealthy or not. But let's stick to the plan. In the military, you learn to trust who's on your left and who's on your right. And in that case, I'm trusting who's on my left and my right, and that we can collectively make the right decisions for this plan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Even though you're sitting at the end of the table. Representative Kessler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I was just he actually summed it up for me, what I was going to say. I just want to remind people that, and Representative Holheisel kind of made a good point too, where we're not done with amendments, right? I'm sure we got more amendments coming up, and I'm sure some of them are very deserving as well. But I'm just not prepared to take a $100 million chunk out of this right now. So I'm not going to be in favor of this.
Representative Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to support this, but on the other hand, I don't want to kill the whole thing. So what assurance can anybody give me that if we put this on, that it doesn't kill the whole deal?
That'll have to be a rhetorical question because I don't think anybody can answer that.
No, that's a very real question.
Yeah. Well, that's why when I made my comments earlier, as you can see, this is not a partisan deal. It's all across the board. People have their different opinion about the only thing we probably won't do is leave the cliff in place. So there's lots of different ideas on how to handle Social Security, but we'll hopefully get something that we can get pushed out. But next I have Representative Helgerson.
Question for staff first. For phasing this in, it's how much money? 100 million for the first year, and was it 50 million and 55 26? So $170 million.
Since I said the numbers off of out of memory, I've actually pulled out the actual numbers, which is always better. And so it's 101.2, 55.3, and 28.2 that this amendment would add, which sums over those 3 years to 184.7.
184 million. You've already made the decision to do it. It's just whether or not you're going to give it to the general public or whether you're not going to keep it for your own spending. We're going to have $184 million probably when we go to conference committee with the Senate of additional spending. Make a decision. If you believe in something, then spend the money for it. I know you can pull it out, and we've done that for years. But at the same time, I got a few senators on the other side that'll spend $100 million just like that. I'd rather spend it and give it back to the general public. And, you know, I'm getting to the point where I may even carry some amendments down, not only on this, but on food. Yeah, $500 million is a whopping amount of money. But we throw away more money in this building than we give back to the general public normally. And I'd rather give more money back. I've heard Ken's speech 100 times, if not one time. And I'm at the point of saying, maybe we should make a conscious, large decision to move money from our pockets to the taxpayers.
Representative Alcala.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on the child tax that my colleague mentioned earlier that people qualified for. We don't know how fortunate that we are. I don't think anybody around here struggles. But let me tell you how that child tax works in the poor community. Grandparent that's making $2,000 on Social Security is helping raise grandkids. The parents of those kids apply for the child tax. They get it, and they get the money back or whatever it is, but they're broke. So the grandparents aren't getting none of that. So it's easy to say that, oh, well, they have the child tax where they're going to get this reimbursement. Yeah, on black and white, that looks good. But in reality, in poor communities, it doesn't work that way.
Representative Wassinger.
I think everyone has good points. And it's true. We tend to add money to the budget with one amendment here and one here. And I agree, we have to get rid of the Social Security tax, but I do think if we do it in a modulated way in this tiered formula, that we won't be overdoing this tax plan. It's hard enough to get something through with all of us as well as the governor. So I want to give them all their money back. I don't want them to be taxed. We have a plan to do that. That's a good thing. But I think we need to stop just throwing money. I mean, every budget committee knows this. Just go ahead and give them 14 million, give them another 75 million. All of a sudden you have a lot of money going out. So we just have to, I think every committee needs to have to be really careful about what money they're throwing out. Because it's not just a figure, it is actual dollars and it's taxpayer dollars. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do you want to say something? Okay. Representative Sawyer.
Thank you, Chairman. You know, we put these tax bills together. It's all about compromise. And, you know, my personal belief, and from a policy standpoint, is we shouldn't get rid of the tax on Social Security. We should just get rid of the cliff. But there was a tremendous amount of support in this body. You know, I want my caucus, your caucus, the Republican caucus, other people in the Capitol, taxpayers out there that want to get rid of this. And so the bill we have before us gets rid of it, but it phases out over 4 years. I think if we're going to get rid of it, we should just do it at once. You know, if that's the decision we want to get rid of it. That seems to be the policy decision that people want. I think it's better to do it all at once, particularly with this group of people. I mean, we're talking about older citizens, and I hate to think people have to wait 3 or 4 years to get a tax cut. And I may not see it. So, I mean, I think it'd be better just to do it once. So we're good. If we want to get rid of it, I think we should just do it all at once. So my good friend from Topeka has convinced me. I'm voting with Ken Corbett for once.
Representative Stogstill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Representative Sawyer and Helgerson. In my district, 30, 40 years ago, it was a very middle-class district where lots of people came in, starter homes. Lots of those people have lived there for 30 or 40 years. They've now retired, and the property values are going up so quickly, and the property taxes are going up so quickly. I'm not sure they were going to last in those houses another 3 years. And I don't think the state should ever put people in a position to lose their houses because they can't afford to pay their property taxes. And I would think that if we do this all in one fell swoop, it's going to provide enough money to keep some of those people in their houses, and I think that's important. If you put them in a strange situations and so on like that, they may end up spending a lot more money, even on medical care, just for the stress that they'll suffer. And so if we're going to do this, let's just do it right. Get those people the money that they're going to need and do it in one fell swoop.
Any further discussion, committee? Representative Epley.
Gosh, I feel like schizophrenic here, like role reversal today with this committee. But you know, we have a plan before us, and it's fiscally prudent. It's phasing it in, and it's giving it time to, because we don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years, and we've seen what happened previously. I mean, I did when I came in 17, where we were, and so I think showing some restraint and trying to work this bill in the current language is important. And I appreciate all the comments around, and you know, I can go along to get along, but I think we should work the original language of the bill. Thank you.
You know, when I put this bill together, I heard from the people that just wanted to remove the cliff. I heard from the people that wanted to get rid of it all at once. My definition of a compromise is when everybody walks away equally upset. So I guess that's why I proposed phasing it out over a number of years. We do get the eventual elimination. It's just not all up front. But if there's no further discussion, we'll go ahead and have a vote. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all of those in favor of the Corbett amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The noes appear to have it. Division's been called. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And all those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, on a vote of 10 to 12, the amendment fails. Those wishing to be recorded. Okay, in the affirmative, those wishing to be recorded, Representative Clayton, Helgerson, Stogstill, Alcala, Miller, and Haswood, and Corbett. Anyone wishing to, and Helgerson. Anyone wishing to be recorded as a no vote?
Weird.
See,
What are you guys like, embarrassed?
See none, we are back on the bill. Representative Clayton.
Could I just get confirmation of the numbers of that division split again, please?
There was 10 in favor and 12 opposed. Representative Helgerson.
Chairman, I don't have this written down as amendment, but it would be that we fully fund July 1, the food sales tax, move it forward to that point. You have that one? Okay.
Do you want that distributed?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
And is the fiscal note you said, Eddie, was 60?
The general fund fiscal impact is 62.2, and there's an additional 12.9 million from the highway fund.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's actually 6 months because it goes from the effect.
Representative Holgerson.
You want me to do the explanation?
Yeah, if you want to, and we'll make sure it gets handed out. Looks like the committee all has it.
Early in the session, I had a bill introduced to introduce the sales tax, the elimination of the sales tax on food, and have it effect, I think it was April 1st. I did it early, it was in January, because I thought that's a good way of helping all the people that are out there paying for the increases in food and the increases that they have. And why would I want to do that? I'd want to do that because what we're doing is spending a lot of money here quite often, both the House and the Senate, for things that really don't reach the priority in the majority of citizens of this state. And I'm getting a little tired of it, and I think that they are too. So all I want to do is give back the money that we promised. You already made all the decision to put the money back. I'm just saying we should put it back early because our receipts over that period of time since we originally voted on it have come in higher. So I think we should give back to the elderly, to the poor, to the wealthy, to all Kansans, the money that we've already promised them 6 months early.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend. Do we have a second? Representative Sawyer. Discussion on the Helgerson amendment. Representative Kessler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for him. When does the sales tax end now, the current legislation?
January 1st of 2025.
Do what? Say what was that? You.
December 31st, January 1st.
So this next January?
Yes.
So the January coming up, what's that tax going to be?
It's going to be eliminated on food.
In January?
Yes.
As it is?
Yes.
And you're just suggesting we do it in July?
In 6 months early.
Okay. All right. It's already coming off here, but okay. Thanks.
Committee, any further discussion? Representative Hoheisel and then Stoggs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I find it ironic that a lot of things ironic today. I find it ironic that through several different proposals that this tax committee and the legislature has passed, that the tax on food would actually be phased out right now. If several of our ideas and our tax bills actually went through. Unfortunately, they haven't yet, and that's due to vetoes from the second floor. We have worked on this. We've worked hard as Republicans, as a body, to pass and get rid of the food sales tax, and every time we've been met with resistance. So I find it ironic that we're claiming today we want to do this now, when we could have already had this. I believe like 2 years ago, and one of the proposals I think we were working on in 2019, 2020. So it's just not lost on me that we're making this claim now when we could have already had this in law. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Stoggsdale.
Well, that's my point, but I think from another perspective, we could have done away with this entire sales tax on food July 1st, 2022. We should have done it. It's cost the people of Kansas hundreds of millions of dollars in unnecessary sales tax on food. I don't believe there's two things I don't think it should ever be taxed: medicine and food. And this was the original plan that I remember the other party coming up with, was we phase this in and finally get rid of it in January 1st of 2025. We've delayed it enough. Let's get rid of it July 1st. We should have gotten rid of it at July 1st, 2022, but at least we can do is save them some money between July 1st of 2024 and January 1st of 2025. And this especially has hurt us in Johnson County and Wyandotte County and Miami County, who live right across the street from the Kansas City Metro. Because we didn't do this in 2022, we still have Kansans that go right across the street to the grocery stores in Missouri to save money on taxes. And we have not incentivized those people to come to Kansas and spend their money at the grocery stores and so on in Kansas. This needs to be done July 1st of 2024.
Okay, we did have some other ones in the queue, so we'll move on according to that. Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to remind whoever was on the tax committee 6 years ago, when we decided to tax third-party sellers on the internet, we proposed in our tax bill to put all of that money into getting rid of the food sales tax, because every year it's gotten more money in there, and it would have taken it down. And when it took it all the way down, if more money came in, which it probably would have, we could have been taking off the Social Security tax starting way back 6 years ago. So to say, oh, we're messing with this, we're doing this, it's been vetoed so many times by the second floor. I don't want to hear that. It was going to be gone 6 years ago. So this, we have what, how many more months and we'll get rid of it? We have a plan, follow the plan, and hope to God that we don't have it vetoed again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with a couple of previous speakers have said. The governor's vetoed this multiple times. The reason we still have this is because of the governor. I'm not going to support this amendment.
Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think something else I do want to point out on this is that I believe in research come back me up with the exact numbers. Some 18% of these total sales tax, including food, goes into the state highway fund. And by accelerating this 6 months to July 1 could have a negative impact on our state highway fund, which we've done great work the last few years to make sure we're fully funding. But
I might check with staff. Does this accelerate that increase in the highway fund?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the slated increase from 17 to 18%, which will occur on January 1, currently at 2025, is also amended to occur on July 1 of 2024.
Okay. Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Representative Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that, definitely this has been a pretty heated issue because, there have been times when the food sales tax has been put in with other packages. I think it's, kind of disappointing that we haven't had the opportunity to vote on this standalone as is. So this isn't a perfect solution. This is an amendment. But again, we all weigh our votes as they come up. I'd like to go ahead and call the question.
I typically don't like calling the question. I do like to hear from everybody without a.
Okay, I can withdraw that motion then.
Well, and I appreciate that. Is there any further discussion on this?
I'm not done yet.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Go ahead and continue.
Yeah. But
maybe
no, so if we're not doing that, I mean, I think again, this is an opportunity for us to communicate to our constituents whether we support this or not. If I carried every single grudge from every single governor that I've worked with that does things that I don't like on taxes, then I'd be voting against all kinds of things. Either you want to do it or you don't. The vote is here. So when we do take it, keep that in mind. Do you want to save your constituents money on this or not?
Representative Francis.
I know a number of others have already said this, but I think we somewhat need to stick with the plan here. The chairman has made a lot of compromises to get something that he thinks we can get across the line, and I don't want to get in the way of that. I do have one question though. In the past, I've heard on some of these that based upon the time that we passed the bill, there can be some timing implementation issues. Is there anything on this that would create a implementation issue by doing it July 1?
If I remember, and I'm looking at Department of Revenue, I think you usually publish those new rates for the quarter at 60 days in advance. Is that correct? So technically, even if we adopted this, even with 40 or 30 days notice, Department of Revenue would get out a memo to all of their retailers. We try to get that notice out so retailers can change their systems. But if we pass this bill, we've got plenty of time to make that change. Representative Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support the motion. And, when this tax package was put together, the goal was to keep it, under $500 million a year. The food sales tax, it's one-time money, $62 million hit to the general fund. So we're at 412. We add this, we're at 474 the first year. It doesn't affect any year after that because it's going to happen after that anyway. So we stay within the 500 million that we're looking at. But let's remember this is about our constituents. I mean, I think it's important to give them the tax relief as soon as possible. And if we can do it and keep the package under 500 million, which we can, we ought to do it. We ought to think about them. And I don't know if I should bring this up. A couple of weeks ago, I had a cousin that turned 100. She had a 100th birthday party. By the way, she's a Republican. And, but I'm momming me. She's like, you have got to get that food sales tax off as soon as possible. She goes, I may not make it till next January. So anyway, so cousin Esther, I'm doing it for you too. But really, our constituents, I mean, think about them. This keeps within the dollars we were talking about within the package. It gets them tax relief, $62 million more tax relief 6 months sooner. So I think we ought to support the amendment and do it for our constituents.
Thank you. Representative Haswood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a young person who doesn't own a home, it's really hard to relate sometimes to tax packages like this. When we cut the food sales tax, that is felt of relief all across our state, all across demographics. So this is an amendment I support, and just having something in front of us that we can say with our chests that this will go into effect in July, cutting that waiting time to 6 months is a really exciting opportunity. So I support this amendment. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Representative Kessler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just kind of want to reiterate again here. This entire tax bill that we're talking about is for our constituents. Everything we're talking about today is for our constituents. We're doing the work for our citizens of Kansas right now. And once again, we probably not done with all of our amendments. Probably going to hear some pretty good stuff, but once again, we're taking another $65 million hit at the package, and I think we need to stick with the plan. And I don't support the amendment.
Seeing no further discussion. Forgot who. Henry made the. Okay, forgot who made the amendment. All those in favor of the Helgers? Yes, please do. Representative Helgerson.
We all have strong feelings about this. This issue has been around a while. Let me remind the colleagues, before the Republicans fought the second floor on this issue, Democrats were warring against the second floor because they didn't, on the second floor, this was not greeted warmly. We had colleagues that argued and were chastised by them. This has been a regular fight. In that time, well, first of all, let me go back. There was a concern by one of the representatives about the highway fund. The highway fund has so much money available, they're wanting to give money to airports, more money to airports rather than doing the highway program that we talked about. I've seen this year clearly hundreds of millions of dollars that the second floor and leadership say we want to spend more money on one-time projects or annual projects or paying off debt or doing other things rather than giving it to the general public. You know, I can be patient, but this was a bill that I introduced in January because I knew what the deadline was with the department in order to get them. And the only reason we haven't done it is because some people wanted a different package and wanted something else put together. Well, 67 million or whatever it is, yeah, it deviates from the package that's being proposed in front of us. But it's $70 million that goes back in the pockets of the public. And I think that's what we're here for.
Committee, you've heard the motion by Representative Helgerson to amend. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No. The noes appear to have it. Division's been called. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, on the count of 8 to 14, 8 in favor, 14 opposed, the motion fails. Anyone wishing to be recorded as an affirmative, Representative Clayton, Helgerson, Stogstill, Sawyer, Haswood. Am I going too fast, Leah? Okay. Miller, Alcala. Anyone wishing to be recorded as a no vote? Okay, we are just asking. Just asking. Okay. Okay, we are back on the bill committee. Further discussion or amendments? Representative Bergkamp.
Well, I might as well jump into the fray. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have an amendment. I'll try.
Okay. Well, do you want to briefly discuss it while it's being passed out?
Yeah, hopefully the discussion this time isn't quite as robust as the first one. Probably talked ourselves out a little bit, but my goal is Social Security tax. I personally don't think we need to eliminate it completely. So I believe the governor, she's been beat up a little bit here today, and I want to give her credit. Last year, she said we just need to smooth the cliff. So I'm going to take her advice and say, let's smooth the cliff. And I'm also going to increase the married filing jointly starting point from 75 to 100,000 to give them a little bit of a benefit on it. Other than that, should mirror like 2109, I believe, that we've passed in the past.
Okay. We'll wait while that gets distributed.
Chairman, would they read the amendment so I can hear what it is? Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead and turn to the revised. Actually, let's go ahead and get a second on that first before we move forward. Do we have a second? Representative Francis, and we'll turn to the reviser for an overview and questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the amendment really starts on the second page, which is page 23 of the bill on the top. Really what it does, if you look towards the bottom, it installs 2 new sections. So the quote unquote cliff would exist for $75,000, would remain for taxpayers with single head of household or married filing separate. And then there would be that amount would raise to $100,000 for married filers, married filing jointly. So then you go to the back, the second page, it removes the current provisions of the formulas and installs new formulas. For the single head of household and married filing separate, the range from 75,000 to 125,000 would be subject to the formula. And then for married filing jointly, the range would be 100 to 150,000.
Okay, committee, are there any questions for the reviser? Representative Francis.
Do you guys have a fiscal note on this one?
Yeah, I do have a fiscal note that the department was able to provide, and if you'll give me just 1 second, I'll be able to plug it in and tell you the difference. So on the first year, this is actually more costly than the current version because the phase is the same for single filers, but opposite for married couples. After that, it becomes less costly to the state. So the first year, it would add $14.8 million. The second year, it would reduce 14.3. The third year, it would reduce 44.6. The fourth year, it would reduce 76. The fifth year, it would reduce 79.3. And that's relative to the bill as it stands today, if that makes sense.
Now. Representative Bergkamp, that was on question for the reviser. Any other questions for staff? Representative Bueller.
So just to be clear, does this do anything to the phase out? Does the phase out remain same, or does this get rid of the phase out?
It would keep the tax on Social Security. So it would just it'd smooth the cliff out, but then.
But to be clear, it doesn't phase taxes out.
Correct.
Okay. That's what I thought it did. I can't support that.
Any further questions for the revisers? If not, Representative Bergkamp, did you want to further comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So today we've heard a lot, I think, about compromise, fiscal responsibility. I think doing what's best for the state. In my mind, I agree. The fiscal cliff, like we've heard in past testimonies, it's a bad thing. We need to fix it. But I'm also very hesitant just to eliminate tax on Social Security income because, as the representative over here previously mentioned, half of that income has never been taxed. It's very similar to a 401k that we get taxed on. To me, that benefit does need to be taxed, and it's not punitive to do so. The federal government does that. Actually, in I think 1993, Clinton's administration increased the tax on Social Security from 50 to 85%. So it's something that the federal government does, and I think personally as a state, it's just good policy. And I know up here sometimes we get wrapped up in the emotions of the state and what the taxpayers want, which we're here to listen, but we're also here to, I think, to do what's right and maybe not always do what people want, because sometimes that's just not the best, like the prudent thing to do. And I think by not eliminating the Social Security income tax, it's going to enable us to lower our overall income tax, which again is going to help these same people. And I just think it keeps us from being boxed into a corner down the road, and when we'll look back and say we wish we wouldn't have made this decision potentially today. So thank you.
Representative Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but this is kind of a compromise bill that we're trying to get over the line. And just like I was opposed to the first one that did away with it totally at this point, I'm also opposed to this one because I know that doing away with it eventually is very important to a lot of people in this room and a lot of people at home. So I'll be opposed to the motion.
Representative Corbett.
I think I'll follow and ditto what was just said. I think it seems crazy here. We're trying to balance the state budget on retirees, but there's a lot of other problems this state has. They cause themselves. So I'll be a no on this amendment.
Any further discussion, committee? I had Representative Francis as the second on that motion. Yep. Okay, committee, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Bergkamp, you can close.
I think I appreciate your time and listening, and again, I think it's the right thing, but obviously it's the will of the committee here. So thank you.
Okay, committee, you've heard the motion by Representative Bergkamp to amend. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
The noes appear to have it. Division was joked at, but I don't think it's serious. The noes appear to have it. The noes do have it. Motion fails. We are back on the bill. Any further discussion or amendments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close. Representative.
Do we have a
Hoheisel.
motion?
We need a motion to move on the bill.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass House Substitute for Senate Bill 300.
And a second by Representative Epley. Any final discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Sure.
Yes, Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add, I was going to do it before we voted on this. Just a couple of pleas. Thank you again for your work on this bill. I think it is a good compromise. It is a good bill. And I know how late you worked and how hard you worked on this very fair bill. A plea to my colleagues in the Senate to please look at this and take this up. This has $400 million that we can return to our constituents this coming up year, another 400 plus next year. It's a very good tax bill. We didn't get everything we wanted in this. I was a big proponent of the single rate. We didn't get it. We're not going to be able to get it this year. It would be an abomination if we left this building this year without substantive tax relief for our constituents. And quite frankly, I've told people this, if we are unable to find a deal this year to give tax relief to our constituents, every single person in both chambers should be unelected and the governor should be recalled. And I truly believe that. And then another plea for the second floor is, again, this is a good tax bill that we can get money back to our constituents. This is a very good tax bill. Please take a look at it. Please compromise on this, or else we'll lose everything on this. So just a plea to them that take this bill seriously. It is a good bill. It is a fair bill, and it is a good first step. And again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your work on this.
Thank you. Anything else, committee? I guess I would just like to thank you, but thank you for that, but I didn't do the work. This was a combined effort by a lot of people. And like I said earlier, there's some very good amendments that didn't get on here. I think we're all probably walking out of here maybe with a little bit of frustration, but like I said, good compromise is when everybody walks away equally mad. So, yeah. Walked right into that one. Committee, thank you very much for all your work this year. It's been an honor working with you all. This is supposedly the last meeting we will have, the regular meeting. We do have agenda as call of the chair next week, just in case we do need to get together, either to hear a bill, work a bill, or introduce. You never know what's going to happen in tax. But I also want to take just a few moments to recognize Leah, committee assistant. I think everybody in this room knows that this wouldn't happen without you. So thank you for all your hard, dedicated work. And also, I'm not sure if he's back there, my assistant, Bob. Yep. Raise your hand, Bob. He does a great job when he barely even sees me to still get meetings scheduled and take care of me. So I appreciate all his effort. And certainly, as always, thank you to the revisers and research staff. You guys did an incredible amount of work in Department of Revenue too, especially on this last bill here. It was kind of a fast track job, and I appreciate everybody that I don't even know all the effort that went into it, so I can't thank everybody adequately. But don't want to belabor the point, but I just want to make sure everybody understands that we really appreciate all the work that goes into everything that happens here. So, thank you, and committee, we are adjourned.